Down the street, we not only have an English-speaking service, but a Kenyan service, and I've invited my colleague Charity Kamau to bring to you a very beautiful passage from 1 Corinthians in the New Testament. Charity?
We're going to read from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 to 8a. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith, so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body, so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful, or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Amen.
Amen. James had just one relative living in Seattle, and that's Rick Goodwin, who lives downtown. On Friday a week ago, I was visiting with a parishioner in Capitol Hill on Broadway Street. We walked into a little coffee shop, and the barista was shaken and just had gotten off the phone, and she said, "My best friend's uncle just died. You know, he's that guy who was in the traffic circle down in South Seattle." And I said, "Where in South Seattle was this?" She said, "Oh, I don't know, somewhere between Seattle and Renton, you know, in that little odd area down there." And I said, "Well, it might be Rainier Beach. I'm the pastor at the Rainier Beach Presbyterian Church, and I want to help out in any way that I can. Here's my number." And that's how I got connected with the family. Some would say that this was a chance happening, a chance meeting. And of course, I see it more as a sign of God's presence, God's healing balm, God's support, which is poured out into this community right now and has been poured out to this family. How do we begin to get closure, to move on, to wrap our minds around this shocking event? I'm not sure there's any way we can make sense of this tragedy. It was senseless and cruel and unthinkable, and it shouldn't have happened. But we gather today to make a statement in the face of tragedy. And the statement is this: life is precious. James' life is precious. Community life is precious. We will not let this incident happen in vain. We will take a stand against violence and hatred, against retaliation, against impatience. We stand for creating community, for recognizing the gifts that each person brings to this community. We stand for showing the rest of Seattle that Rainier Beach is a gem of a community hidden away on the lake. And of course, we don't want to say that too loudly, because then they'll all want to move here. But we love this community. We love its diversity. For many of us, that's what draws us here, that makes us want to live here and stay here and work here. We wouldn't want it any other way. You couldn't find these gifts in other parts of our city. We gather to be in solidarity around each other, around these gifts. For all the gifts that living in community brings, it brings challenges too. When large numbers of people live together, there are unique skills that we need to develop. Respect for others and their ways, tolerance for unique personalities and quirky neighbors, honoring the dignity of all people, young people, old people, black people, white people, children, youth, gay and lesbian people, being civil and respectful of each other, that's the soothing oil that lubricates the wheels of community, and that is what we need to practice. That brings us to a place of flow and of joy as a community and of peace, forbearance with each other, giving each other the benefit of the doubt, with all of our own idiosyncrasies and flaws. This is a virtue that is sorely needed in this community as in every community. We will not let this incident block the flow in this community. On the contrary, we want it to further our resolve to make this a model community, setting the pace for all the neighborhoods in Seattle. Of course, you know that I'm a Christian minister, and I see the hand of God at work right now in this community, and even after this incident. The monthly neighborhood joint block watch meetings that we have, where people are beginning to come together, through Yolanda, Gil, Massandiri, and Maria McDaniel, who lead them. The meeting in the park, in Hutchinson Park, later this month. The grand opening of the Peace Garden at my church just down the street next Saturday. The Just Java Coffee Espresso Bar there. Friends, just look at our community and look at how we're coming together. In fact, if you'll just take a moment right now, introduce yourself to somebody that you don't know who's standing right beside you.
Hi, I'm Sable. Nice to meet you.
I've been on your webpage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I watched you at the meeting. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, unfortunately.
I know, I wish you were still our neighbor. You moved away.
Yeah, I'm very torn about that. Not only for what happens in the neighborhood, but what happens in the school system.
I know, my husband's a teacher in school.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just...
At church, we call this the passing of the peace.
But I'm glad that...
So we often have to interrupt it after 5 or 10 minutes so that we can get on with the rest of the service. People are in need of community, friends. And today we gather to pass the peace in our community. There is in God's heart a trajectory of peace that flows between us when we practice love, the kind of love that Charity just read about from 1 Corinthians. The way of life that bears with the other. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. This is the path we must work for, and look for, and recognize, and live out when we see it. And I see this movement happening in our community here today. This is a day of hope, as we see a shoot of new life springing from this incident. New life in this community, in this gem of a community with such a hopeful future. And so we leave this place today with a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the life of our fallen brother, James, and for everything that he stood for. Gratitude for the gift of life. Gratitude for this neighborhood and for each person in it. Gratitude for those little peekaboo views that so many of us have when we walk around this neighborhood. And don't say that too loudly either. Thank you for coming to this time today. And at this time, Charity will read you one more passage from Ecclesiastes.